Hello, everyone. Armchair updates. Going to break down scoring week 9 in the ABL. And there were a couple of pretty cool things that happened in week 9. Maybe not as cool if you were on the receiving end of them, but a couple neat things to talk about. First things first, say hi, give a shout out to Zach, the new Brewers owner. We lost Rob. Rob, we didn't lose him. I mean, he's not dead. We just Rob was super cordial about why he needed to leave. Just didn't think he had the time to dedicate to a league like this. I think, like a lot of us, this was his first 30 team dynasty. Obviously, his auction did not go the way that he probably, well, maybe it went the way he wanted it to go, but maybe it just wasn't going the way he expected it to go. But welcome, Zach. Had a nice first week with the Brewers, as we will see a little bit later. So 2 new owners in 2 weeks. Josh with the Giants replacing Randy. No, not Randy. Roger. Randy Orioles, Roger Giants, and Roger we never heard from. We still haven't heard from him. We don't know what's happened to him. You know, maybe is he an example again of a guy that took his team, thought it was going to look different, and then kind of bailed? We don't know. Hopefully nothing bad happened to him. But anyway, welcome to the new guys. We hope you like the league. We hope you stick around. Thanks for taking over pretty rough teams and trying to do something with them. I think both of you guys are doing well in your own ways so far. Josh has made a couple of monster trades. Tatis is now gone. Soto is gone. I'd like to maybe going to get Blue Jay Mark on here to talk a little bit about the trades, probably starting from right after the Acuna deal, the stuff that I didn't cover with Tony. Maybe get Mark on here when I have a free chunk in the evening to be able to sit and do that. But yeah, the Giants have made some monster moves, and he's not done. If you know you're on the Discord, you know he's not done. And Zach, I think, has taken a little bit of time to settle into his team and see the exact direction he wants to go with it. But what he definitely did was get the Brewers out of the bottom 5 of a couple of bad categories and into the top 5 for the week on a couple good categories. The Brewers had a great week, including knocking off the first place in the league, San Diego Padres. So not something I ever thought I would see myself saying, even a week ago, probably, that the Brewers of all teams were going to knock off the mighty Pods. But I'll be damned, the Brewers beat the Pods in week 9. So good for us. You know, I'm sure Dodger Joe is liking seeing that. I'm fine with seeing that. You know, I'm not going to catch the Pods, but anything to bring the guys in my division down a peg, I'm okay with. So let's take a look at, let's blow this up. Take a look at your week 9 scoring. You had a lot of teams that we're used to seeing up here at the top, but then some of the funkiness I was kind of mentioning right at the top. We got the Twins, the Cubs, the Blue Jays, the White Sox, the Tigers, the A's. After a couple rough weeks, couple big injuries, the A's come back and go 3-0, and the Angels also go 3-0, with the Dodgers going 2-0 on the week and having just an utterly ridiculous week that I'll get at. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent. I've been saying it for weeks. Somebody explain to me the Angels, man. I don't get it. It's not like it's not a bad team. Okay, it's not a bad team, but you've had underperforming Lindor, underperforming Alec Boehm. Kind of like me, he's using a catcher a lot of times in his UT spot. The pitching is nothing to write home about. The top pitcher is Kyle Hendricks. And then the second best pitcher is, it's 151 points, but it's Christian Javier, a guy that's been hurt, a guy that's now been moved into the pen. I just do not see how this team keeps performing the way it does. And I'm not trying to bag on Dan or this team at all. I just am saying I don't get it. When I look at this team, this is like 3 weeks in a row now. I think the Angels have either went undefeated or maybe only lost one. And I keep saying, the Angels keep confounding my expectations. I still don't get it. I know Mullins has been hot. I know Benintendi's been hot. And Josh Bell's maybe starting to heat it up a little bit. I guess he's just an all-around. You look at the points per game for some of these guys. He's just an all-around decent team. I don't get it, man. They just keep the Angels just keep blowing my mind. They go 3-0 again this week, week 9. He just keeps doing it. I don't get it. But congrats to the Angels, man. You keep rolling. Very quietly rolling. The Angels don't typically show up in the top 5 scorings. He's not usually showing up in the big ass kickings. But this guy just keeps winning games every single week. Congrats to the Angels. They just keep doing it. Those are your undefeateds. Then we had some one-loss teams. The Pirates 2-1. The Brewers, a real nice 2-1 on the week, putting up 945 total points. I don't know. This is the best week the Brewers have had, and it comes, the week when they change their owner and get a new guy in there that wants to run this team. I doubt it's a coincidence. Good on the Brewers. The Padres go 2-1, that one loss to the aforementioned Brewers. The Rays, the Red Sox, the Marlins, and the Yankees round out the teams that went 2-1. The Mariners go 1-1. The Orioles go 1-1. The Royals, the Rockies, the Reds, and the Mets all go 1-2. And I feel like I was almost lucky to go 1-2. I thought I was having a good week. Turns out not to be such a good week. The Astros go 0-3. The Giants, the Rangers, the D-backs, the Braves, and the Nats all go 0-3. And then a couple of more powerful teams. You got the Phillies going 0-2, and you've got the Cardinals. Never thought I would say it. The Cardinals dropping both games, going 0-2 on the week, in a week where Pittsburgh goes 2-1. So Pittsburgh gains a little bit of ground on the Cardinals in that division. The Mets go 1-2, which I guess if I think as the Rockies, I'm gonna, try to fight for that last playoff spot, that 8 spot in the NL. I like to see the Mets going 1-2, with me going 1-2. The Astros, a somewhat tough week. I know he shows up on the thin loss list against the Marlins, so you could easily flip-flop the Marlins, and they could have easily went 1-2 with the Astros, at least salvaging one win and going 1-2. And then the poor Indians go 0-4 another week. What can be said about the Indians? They're rebuilding. Everybody knows it. He made the dump proclamation. You can tell by the deals he's made. He's been hit with some injuries and stuff, but this is a team that's rebuilding, so not terribly surprising to see them dropping games at this point. Yeah, pretty interesting week. Couple big teams. You're used to seeing the Phillies, going 3-0, 2-1, 4-0, 3-1. And same with the Cardinals. Of course, Cardinals are still the point per game on the season leader. Very strange to see them go 0-2, 1 to the ridiculous week that the Dodgers had. The Dodgers put up 455.333 points, which it blows away the high score. I don't know 100% what the high score on the week was previous. I didn't go back and look at every single one, but I know that crushes it. And I know Joe was a little disappointed I think he only played 2 matchups this week. So he feels like he kind of wasted some points, as it were, to put up a week like that. And against a team like the Cardinals, but to only get 2 W's out of it, when you're going to score the most points that anybody scored, excuse me, on single week scoring, you'd love to go 4-0 if you could, but I mean, my team right now can dream of putting up. I mean, really scoring half of that is good for my team right now. It's good for a lot of teams to put up 455 in a week. And don't be surprised when you see the Dodgers at the top of the hitting and pitching for the week. It really all came together for Joe and resulted not only in the highest score of the week, but also the number one absolute biggest drubbing that we've seen. And yes, it was against another rebuilding team in the Nats, but still, you still have to score the amount of points that Joe scored to make it that big of an ass kicking. And man, did he ever! 346 points against the Nationals. So Joe's margin of victory right there is well higher than my highest score of the season. Is his highest margin of victory here. 300 is ridiculous. The biggest one that I had seen before was, I believe it was Joe over Cleveland. I believe it was Dodgers over Cleveland. It was week 6. It was 241.33 points. So he eclipsed his own biggest win margin by over 100 points. Pretty impressive. And then he nearly made the list again with the win over St. Louis, 172-166. That barely missed the cut. I think that would have been the number 6. If we went to 6, there's no reason I can't, but I don't. But if we went to 6, I think it would be the Dodgers over the Cardinals. So weirdly enough, not only the Cardinals dropped 2, but it would have been strange to see the Cardinals on the wrong side of the biggest margin. You don't see that very often, or maybe ever. That would have been a first, but didn't happen. No worries, Jeff. Number 2, the Blue Jays, who had a very good week. We'll see the Toronto name all over some of this stuff. Over the Braves, 224.166 points. And then rounding out the 200-point victories, the Angels over the Mets. The Angels scored 355 this week. Great week. Again, way more than I've ever scored in a week. I look at that roster, and I just don't get it. Maybe, I don't know, man. I don't know. It just doesn't – that roster doesn't scare me, but it probably should, because the Angels are winning games left and right. And he beat the Mets this week by 216.667 points, number 3 on the biggest margin list. Number 4, the White Sox, who we've seen here many times, over the Indians, who we've also seen here many times, 182 points. And rounding out the top 5, the Cubs over the Texas Rangers, 180.666 points. So the number 5 big margin this week, 180 points. This was a week of scoring for some teams, and clearly a week for not scoring for others. Washington, I think, barely eclipsed 100 points. I think they were 106 and change. And rebuilding team, trouble filling out a full lineup right now, so not terribly surprising. And then when you run into a team that scores 350 points or 300, whatever it was, you're going to show up on these lists. Yeah, I think that's about it for that. Arizona could have shown up here multiple times, but did not. They were very close, losing to Seattle and Pittsburgh and San Diego, all by pretty big margins, 175, 176, and 143 points. So it doesn't show up on the top 5, but Arizona took a pretty big licking this week. But again, another team that's dealt with a lot of injuries. And then the Dodgers did beat St. Louis by 172 points. So extremely impressive week by the Dodgers. And yeah, a little bit disappointing if you are the Dodger owner to put up that big of a week and only get 2 wins out of it, but it still looks pretty good. It's still just as impressive. Your smallest margins this week, none that were less than a point like we've kind of had recently. The smallest one, 2.5 points, Baltimore over Texas. So Texas shows up in the number 5 biggest margin, losing to the Cubs by 180, and then the wrong side of the smallest margin as well, losing to the O's by 2.5. Number 2, I talked about a little bit earlier, Miami beat Houston, so the Razor, again, losing by a razor margin to the Marlins, 2.666 points. And then number 3, the Royals I faced the Royals at the wrong time. Big week out of Snell. Of course, a huge week out of DeGrom, but a 2-star huge week out of DeGrom. I was barely winning heading into Sunday night, and then Aaron Judge flipped it over. He flipped it for real, and I lose to the Marlins by 9.667 points. Milwaukee, so not only did Milwaukee beat the Padres, but they barely beat the Padres. The number 4 spot and the smallest margin, 11 points. Milwaukee over the Padres. Great to see Milwaukee on this list, on the right side of a list. It's nice to get some new blood on these lists, even if it is the biggest and smallest margin. Milwaukee's been on the wrong side of those more than a few times, it feels like. And number 5, you have the Mets showing up on both of these lists. The Mets had the number 3 biggest loss by 216 points to the Angels. They also had the number 5 smallest win, 15.833 points against the Braves. So the Braves show up at number 2 on the biggest margin. They got beat by 224. And they also show up at number 5 on the smallest margin, getting beat by roughly 16 points. So a rough week for the Braves. They could have maybe almost scraped one out, but instead lose to the division rival Mets by just under 16 points. Your point per game for week 9. No surprise to see the Dodgers, and this will also be the highest point per game on the week that we have seen, 5.12 points per game with 89 games played. So led the league in games played, led the league in points per game, had the highest scoring single week of the season, and also the biggest blowout of the season. And let's just skip ahead real quick. The Dodgers moved up from number 3 on the season-long point per game. They jumped up to number 2, and tied with the White Sox for number 2, but moved up, from 3 to 2. So the Dodgers really just had the kind of week that you would love to have every week, but unfortunately, most of us will never experience. This was a fuck of a week for Joe. Your number 2 point per game, Toronto Blue Jays. Well, Toronto Blue Jays tied with the Milwaukee's, 4.5 points each. Toronto did it in 77 games. Milwaukee did it in 70. So another spot, like I mentioned earlier, where it's really neat to see what has been a bottom-dwelling team a lot of the season up into some of these lists for good reasons instead of crappy ones. Milwaukee at 4.5 points a game and 70 games played. Nice to see him, averaging that, and not only with 55 games played, or like we've seen a few times, some of these teams looking really good, but just not getting the games played to get the result. So Milwaukee had a great week, got the games played, went 2-1 as a result. So good for Milwaukee. Number 4, Chicago Cubs, 4.42 points per game in 82 games. At number 5, the Twins. I said it a few weeks ago, look out for the Twins. They go 3-0 again this week. Top 5 points per game. Yeah, he played 84 games, so it's no fluke there either. Minnesota is a team to look out for. Number 4 in hitting, number 5 in pitching. Minnesota's all over the place. They've been winning games ever since he made a couple of deals. He got Bellinger back. Tyler's on the warpath. Can I turn the oven to 375? I'm sorry, boys. Give me 2 minutes. Tell you what, that's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff I don't like happening when I'm doing these things. All right, anyway. Jesus, where the hell was I? Chicago, Minnesota, 4.41. Okay, so you're hitting for week 9. Yours, mine, ours. The Dodgers, no surprise, 230 points. But there's the Angels. So maybe that's some answer to my question. He's getting it done with the hitting. Maybe I'll have to take a closer look at the Angels hitting 227 points, number 2 in hitting in week 9. Number 3, Milwaukee, 213. So he did it on the strength of the bats. He goes 2-1, averaging a lot of points, doing it on the strength of the bats, 213 points hitting. Number 4, Minnesota, well, tied for 3, 213 as well. So Milwaukee, Minnesota, something in the water up north, something in the beer, the cheese, 213 points in the same week. And then Chicago, 210. So perhaps it is a northern thing. It's a Lake Michigan thing, or it doesn't really affect Minneapolis, I guess, but still something a little funky with these northern teams going off with the hitting in the same week. So Frank rounds it out, 210. All of these hitting points, as you can see, quite a bit above what was the high hitting scores for week 8. I mean, number 5 this week, the Cubs at 210. Number 5 in week 8 was Detroit at 149. So it's 61 points separating the number 5s from one week to the next. A pretty big hitting week overall in week 9. You're pitching the Dodgers. So the Dodgers first in hitting, first in pitching, 225.333 pitching points. Number 2, the Jays, showing up on another good list, 176.833 points. Number 3, Oakland. So the A's go 3-0. They did it with the arms, 172.167 points. St. Louis, number 4. So he's not getting, Jeff might go 0-2. He's not getting shut out on being on a good list somewhere, as the Cardinals are number 4 in pitching points week 9, 158.867. And then rounding it out, as I already said, Minnesota, 157.167. And the pitching, so the notable thing with the pitching is Seattle dropping out of the top 5 for the first time since, they went 4-4, 4-1, I believe. So it's been at least 3 weeks in a row that he's been number 5. I think it's probably been closer to 4 or 5. I'd have to go back and look. But, yeah, Seattle kicked out of the top 5 pitching for the first time in a while. Your points per game on the season is still St. Louis. He actually improved. So he goes 0-2, but improved his point per game to 4.32, up from 4.29 in week 8. The Dodgers, as I mentioned, slip into a tie for number 2. He's up from 3 to a tie to 2, 4.23. The White Sox drop. Well, they had sole possession of second place. Now they are sharing second place. But he did go up from 4.18 to 4.23. Pittsburgh stays in the number 4 spot, 4.17. And Toronto kicks Seattle out of the top 5 to take the 5 spot, 4.06. Really nice week for the Jays. Look out for the Jays' arms. Mark is always making moves. He's very analytical in his starts. He seems to know what he's doing, at least definitely with the pitching. Toronto, very formidable team with the pitching. Toronto was number 2 this week at 4.5 points a game with 77 games. So good to see them break into the top 5 for points per game on the season. I think Seattle is like right there, like a hair of a point under them. And your season leaders, Didn't change much in the hitting realm. As a matter of fact, the top 5 all stayed the same. It's the Dodgers, the Pirates, Detroit at 3, St. Louis at 4, and Philly at 5, all right where they were last week. Pitching, there's been a bit of a shuffle. It goes White Sox, Seattle, St. Louis. Toronto goes from 5 to 4 and kicks out Detroit. Well, I guess it'd be the Dodgers that kick out Detroit because Toronto was there. Detroit was 4 last week. Through week 8 on season-long pitching, Detroit was number 4 at 1335. It is now the Dodgers at 1493.5. So not only did Joe have to take all the spotlight for the week, but he also weaseled himself into the top 5 in pitching points. So really, anywhere you look, it's Dodger mania. It's like Fernando mania, but just for all of the Dodgers, basically, because they are just a juggernaut right now. And I know with Captain Jack going down for San Diego, we're going to, unless the Padres make I don't know what move he can make. I don't know if he's been talking to anybody. You know, he is my father, yes, and we do talk often, but he doesn't always tell me what he's planning on doing or who he's talking trade with or whatever. I don't know if he has a big move in the works, but I think he's got to do something. The Padres are a playoff team, but if he wants to win that division, he can't lose Captain Jack for the better part of 2 or 3 months and expect that the Dodgers aren't going to overtake you. They're doing it now. Your bottom 5 hitting teams, you know, I started doing this last week. Maybe I'll keep with it. I just like having more numbers to look at. You know, I'm not trying to shit on these guys, but Cleveland stays at number 1, and Oakland moves into number 2, or it's, you know, back at the second worst hitting. So it was San Francisco. So getting a new owner into the Giants took the Giants from the second worst hitting team to the 5th worst hitting team. So he jumped up 3 spots just by having a guy in there to, you know, manipulate the lineups and everything. And then Milwaukee dropped out of that bottom 5 altogether. So these new owners really are having a noticeable, tangible difference on these teams just in the week and a half, 2 weeks that they've been around. Number 3 now is Washington, or number 3, third from the bottom. Your number 3 worst hitting team, 980 points. Number 4, Atlanta. He stays in the same spot. And number 5 is now San Francisco, whereas Oakland was number 5 last week. He takes some especially the Ozuna, the big hitting injuries, and drops down to the second worst hitting team overall. And Milwaukee out of the top 5 altogether. So again, I've said it many times, congrats to Milwaukee. Your bottom pitching teams on the season, you've got Texas staying where he was, Cleveland staying where he was. San Francisco goes from the 4 spot to the 3 spot, so he got a little worse. Arizona goes from the 5 spot to the 4 spot. And then at number 5, we now have a tie, Cincinnati and the Mets. So Milwaukee, again, out of the bottom 5 pitching. So out of the bottom 5 hitting, out of the bottom 5 pitching, rises Milwaukee like a phoenix. And into the bottom 5, Cincinnati and the Mets, both with 743.5 pitching points. So your worst pitching team is 649.17 points. Your worst hitting team is 765 points. And at least for the last 2 weeks since I've been making note of it, it's been Texas on the pitching end and Cleveland on the hitting end. And Cleveland stays at number 2. He was number 2 last week on the bad pitching, and he remains number 2 this week on the bad pitching. So, I mean, there you have it. The notable things, the new owners, you know, thank these guys again for being in, taking over teams that they knew were going to be very rough for this season, but they're taking the reins and, you know, not just making trades, but they're getting in there and just putting guys in the lineup and getting points where it seems clear that these other guys weren't. So Zach and Josh, welcome to the league. Oh man, my dog's about to freak out. So, you know, we'll end it quickly here. That's your week 9 breakdown. Hopefully we get a trade show in soon with Mark. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.